everyone, and welcome. Thank you for being here. This is Thursday, February 11th, and it is a meeting of the school board, a work session, so the board will not be taking actions on any items this evening. We'll have some presentations for discussion. So that's the call to order, and Mr. Kern, if you would please call the roll.
Mr. Bartz?
Here.
Mrs. Fiesel?
Here.
Mr. O'Brien?
Here.
Mrs. Patrick?
Here.
Mr. King?
Here. Thank you. If you would all stand, please, and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Before I take a motion to approve the agenda, we will be adding an executive session at the end of the meeting to end it. The purpose of the executive session will be to consider the employment of a public employee as permitted by the Ohio Revised Code. So if we may have a motion to approve the amended agenda, as I just read, please.
So moved.
We have a second.
A second.
And any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Mrs. Patrick?
Yes.
Mr. Bartz?
Yes.
Mrs. Fiesel?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes, thank you. 5-0 to approve the agenda. And we have our work session items now. And first of all, we have a presentation from the Auditor of State office. So please.
Hi, thanks for having me. A lot of times when the Auditor of State's office comes knocking, we're not always delivering good news. Sometimes it's bad news. Tonight's mostly good, but just a little bit of bad news in there. And that's that you guys have won the Auditor of State Award with distinction, our highest honor again. Bad news is the way Brian's racking them up, you guys are going to have to allocate funds to build him a bigger wall to place all these awards. To win the Auditor of State Award with distinction is given to those entities that file an annual CAFR, a timely financial report in accordance with GAAP, as well as receive a clean audit report. The clean audit report means your financial audit did not contain any findings for recovery, material citations, material weaknesses, significant deficiency, single audit findings, or any questionable cost. That's all the audit speak. What I like to talk about is how hard it is to win this award. And for Brian, this is 3 years in a row, is that the Auditor of State's office audits 5,800 public entities throughout the entire state of Ohio, from The Ohio State University to the smallest township in Vinton County. Out of those 5,800 public entities, the Auditor of State, only 5% of them received this award. In fact, last year it was 4.2, so almost 4% received this award. So to win this award is very hard to do, and then to be winning it as often as Brian is something to definitely be congratulated. So with that, I'd like to present Brian with the Auditor of State Award with distinction.
Thank you very much for being here. We appreciate the time to come and join us this evening. And it's nice to see Emily in the audience this evening, so congratulations to the whole staff of the finance office.
Thank you.
Great going, Brian.
job. Thank you.
Well done.
Any other comments? Okay, item B, we have a fine arts update, and we'll introduce Anthony Elkins, Vince DiTilio, sorry, John Jurovich, Casey Kirk, and Aaron Given to give us an update, please.
All right, so thank you for having us and kind of letting us share a little bit about our successes in the arts in Olentangy, as well as our commitment to the arts. So what we're going to do tonight is just give you a real brief overview. Myself and Mr. DiTilio are going to kind of share some of the successes and then turn it over to the people who are actually in the trenches, who are really the ones inspiring our kids every day to create this work, because it's not us, it's them. So we want our teachers to share some of the great things that are going on. So before we do that, though, I want to kind of share. There we go. The importance of the arts. One of the things I think it's kind of cool to maybe celebrate. As you're aware, we've been very committed to the arts in our district for a long time. Even in the times of budget cuts, we've kept it around. We've stayed committed. We've provided the staffing and that experience to our kids. Thankfully, our representatives in DC to kind of come around to our way of thinking. The recent reauthorization of the Every Student Succeeds Act actually included arts and music specifically in the definition of a well-rounded education. So I think that's kind of affirming to know that this is something we've been doing for a while, and someone's agreeing with us. So that's kind of cool just to share that, you know, that's why we're committed to this, because it does make a difference in what we want for our kids and what we do with our kids. So with that being said, again, just briefly share with you some of what's going on in terms of participation. Right now, in terms of arts participation in the elementary schools, all students have weekly instruction in art and music. How much art and music they have depends on the grade level. We're in our first year of a different looking schedule across all 15 elementary buildings. One of the things we did was really work to provide our teachers with collaborative time and then work with our art and music departments to say, okay, what impact does this have on your curriculum? So our first graders actually receive art twice in every 5-day period, every 5-day rotation, and music once. Second graders receive music once and art once. Our third and fourth graders receive music twice in a 5-day rotation and art once. And then our fifth graders, art once, music once. So again, we're kind of built up that curriculum and really working to provide those opportunities for our students. Also continue with our 4th and 5th grade orchestra or strings program. Current participation of last count is just a little under 600 kids in 4th grade. The exact number I have is 598 as of last count. That is an increase from last year when we presented, and that's pretty consistent or slight growth over the last several years, even with the changes that we've discussed. So last year was 501, so that's an increase. Currently 260 fifth graders involved in that. That is a bit of a drop from where it's been in the past. Last year was right of over 300, so not a huge drop, but we still have a lot of kids participating. In addition, we have just a little over 500 kids, exact count 502 kids involved in 5th grade band. So again, a lot of kids participating. You know, we look at a school like Heritage Elementary, we have 70, for example, in that school, 70 4th graders participating in music. So I mean, Mrs. Diedrich is spending a lot of time, I'm sorry, not music, in the 4th grade strings program. So she's got multiple classes going on, you know, more than the 2 that are expected and required to reach all those kids. So we're seeing some real successes there. Also continue to offer voluntary choirs. Our music staff offers those on their own time to our students, allows them to participate, singing at public events, churches, things like that. So a lot of successes there. And then our buildings are still offering art clubs for our students. So again, just a lot of kind of positives there in terms of what we offer. With that being said, did want to share a couple of just successes that we've seen just recently. That picture on the left you see there, we've actually had some students from Liberty Tree Elementary School who were selected, and their artwork is going to be displayed throughout Columbus during the month of March. So that's kind of cool that, you know, we have kids from Olentangy, their things are going to be displayed. Mr. DiTilio and I were actually at the middle level or middle grades conference. What was it, November, and it was really cool walking through the hallways, looking at the display screens, Orange High School artwork on there. So seeing our kids' art in public places is just exciting for me in this role and as a district resident. So that's kind of cool. The other thing, that picture on the right you see there's our kids from Oak Creek Elementary had the opportunity to lead the national anthem before a basketball game at Orange High School, which for those kids is a huge deal to get out and sing for the high schoolers. So again, just a couple of successes we wanted to share.
I'll jump in here. My name's Vince DiTilio. I'm the secondary supervisor. And at the middle school, you know, the middle school is really obviously, it's a transitional time in kids' lives, social, emotional, but also academically. And one of the things that happens in the arts and in the other subject areas is really just the increase of choice. And in our arts, both visual and performing, students are starting to explore different things of their own interest, but also being able to explore some depth, a little bit more depth. And all of that is a direct result of the elementary programming. And one of the things when Anthony and I came to the district, we both came 3 years ago, we were both told that the pinnacle curriculum in our district was our art curriculum, elementary art curriculum. And if we wanted to see high quality, unified, vertical curriculum, that's where we start. And I think that's been really true. And I really think that our art teachers, our performing arts and visual arts teachers, they talk a lot, they work very hard together, they collaborate well, and that's something to emulate across the other disciplines. Just at the middle school, it's pretty simple. Most of the courses are electives. So over those 3 years, they have the chance to take band, choir, orchestra, and in the visual arts, they start to break up into disciplines of drawing, painting, ceramics, sculpture, mixed media, and that's all elective based. But so there's a little bit of choice worked in, and then that directly flows into the high school, which if you walk into any of our high schools, I mean, it just smacks you in the face. Whether it's the sounds, the visuals, and it's not just the amount. To me, it's always the quality is amazing, and I'll talk a little bit in terms of awards and recognition. And it's every time you turn around, like our kids are winning an award in the arts, it seems like, and that is really cool. And just the passion that the teachers show, and like I said, their ability to work together. For performing arts and at the high school level, obviously, each of the areas like band, there's jazz band, there's marching band, there's just more kind of ways for students to take their interests. In terms of visual arts, recently we changed the structure a little bit to where every medium has sort of the same structure of a level 1, 2, 3, and advanced. And that advanced is important because we have some kids who are taking these courses. I mean, they're diving in 4 or 5 times into a single medium. And that's really cool because just think like jewelry 3. Like, I don't know a lot of districts that have that, and have the interest enough to have kids doing that. So it's the passion of teachers and the passion of the students. And then we don't want to forget also about the applied arts and, the modular technology, woodworking, architectural design. That's a whole nother area in our buildings that is really prolific, and we have kids creating really great things in there. 2 awards and recognition that I think really stand out. Number 1 is the Orange High School Marching Band. They're going to be at the Peach Bowl. I think it's New Year's Eve.
Yes.
Yeah, which is that's so cool. And I really think that is a huge honor for them, but also for the district and the community for them to represent us. And then the other person that I've heard a lot about, and I've never met this student, but I'd love to. Her name's Ellie Yax at OHS, but pretty much she's won every art award there is to win around here. And the thing is that she recently, I guess she was awarded a full ride to the College of Creative Studies in Detroit, and she accepted that, I guess. So that's a big deal for her, and obviously we want to celebrate that. And there's so many more, though. When I asked the art department, send me some recent award winners, it's like documents of flowing in and pictures. So we can't do it justice, but wanted to share a few of those. And then most importantly, we also want to talk about the teachers who do this and set this up and support these kids. So I'd like to introduce Aaron Given, who is the band director at Hyatt's and Liberty, and he's going to share a few things he's doing with his band classes in terms of technology and collaboration. I think you guys.
The opportunities for collaboration. I don't know if I would be a great math teacher because, well, they can work on projects and things like that. It's very much individually oriented. And the relationships that we get to build as a group, as a band, are so valuable to me. And so getting the kids to, A, recognize that as valuable, and B, grow those relationships because they're going to be in that group for a long time. We start band in 5th or 6th grade, and those kids will matriculate as a unit all the way up through high school. It's such a unique place. They may have other classes, but they don't work together in the same way. And so cultivating that sense of community and getting them all on the same page is really important to me. One of the best tools for that is Schoology, which is being pushed by the district. I think that I use it a little bit differently than most teachers do because the social element is kind of at the core of what I do. We turn in assignments and we do reading and we do things like that as well. But the groups feature of Schoology gives us a chance to connect and share and cultivate relationships beyond the classroom. We have 45 minutes a day, which is enough to have a productive rehearsal most days, but not nearly enough to turn them into well-rounded and knowledgeable consumers of art and the arts. And so having the group function lets us have basically, it looks like Facebook and it feels like Facebook, and they like it and they're on it all the time, and it kind of gives me a chance to curate this sense of, hey, did you ever hear the U.S. Marine Band play? Here's the Marine Band. Here's a YouTube video. Well, and then 3 people reply with other Marine Band YouTube videos. And all of a sudden, my whole class of kids who listen to Justin Bieber and Katy Perry have spent an hour hunting YouTube down to find videos of the Marine Band or the New York Philharmonic or the Chamber Orchestra of Lincoln Center or whatever it is. And so all of a sudden, their world has expanded a lot. So beyond just sharing videos, which is honestly a large part of what we do, it gives them a chance to talk about things with kids that are older than them. I have all my students in one group from 6th through 8th grade, so there's some mentoring that happens. The 6th graders don't quite know how to act online, frankly, and the 8th graders will post something, and the 6th graders will post like 6 things, and they'll say, that's not really what we're doing here, and they kind of bring them along. And so there's all this interaction that goes back and forth. Outside of Schoology, I'm kind of a Twitter addict. And that's led to some really cool opportunities for us that we've kind of stumbled into, and that's, I think, what actually led to Vince inviting me here tonight. I follow a lot of music ed groups on Twitter, as well as professional musicians and things like that. And when I feel like I've done something good, I try to share it with my colleagues. And so that's led to some really unique opportunities for my students. We recently have had the chance to collaborate with some composers. Last spring, we commissioned a work by the composer Scott McAllister, who is a professor at Baylor University and has had works played by the National Symphony in Washington, D.C. and the Houston Symphony, and now he's written for the Olentangy, Liberty and Hyatt's 8th grade bands as well. And he lives in Waco, Texas, and that was really difficult as far as getting the kids involved. And so Skype became a really valuable tool for us. And so beyond just having him write a thing and then having us play the thing, we wanted the kids to really feel ownership over the music. And so, I'm sorry, I'm a little behind on my slides. I got excited and I started talking and I forgot to push the button. So these are clips from my Schoology, or screenshots of my Schoology page here. And so we come to our Skypes. And so we got to plan with one another how we were going to nudge the kids into contributing to the compositional process. What interests you? What would you like? We use Google Docs, we use Lucid Charts, and we started building all these things. And the kids would say, oh, Dr. McAllister, this is so cool. We really like the way this sounds. Can you take this? And he would take a little snippet of that, and he would incorporate it into what we were doing. And so the kids saw the result of what they were doing. And so he would write a little bit, and then he'd send me a draft, and I'd print it out, and we'd pass it out, and we'd get on Skype, and we'd play it for him. And he said, oh, you need to make this harder. You can already play this. And the kids were like, oh. So the back and forth, the direct collaboration with a world-class musician that they would never get to interact with in another way. Actually, we did get to fly him in for the premiere up at Ohio Wesleyan last year. That was really cool. But that relationship that they built with him over the course of months is something that they're going to remember and hopefully is going to make them more engaged in music as they get older. They're going to look at their place in music and realize that they can be directly involved in contributing to it, even if they decide that music isn't going to be their profession. So you can see little clips of our Lucid chart here. These are some of the things that from our brainstorming sessions. And there's the premiere from last March with Dr. McAllister. This spring, and in some of my slides, had video embedded that just wasn't going to work today. Is there? Oh, hey. So this is probably longer than you want to watch. It's about 8 minutes long.
It's a really big deal. As far as I know, this is the first ever commission, at least in the Olentangy district. Our name gets to go on the top of it.
So I'll talk over myself here just a little bit.
That was in the contract.
This fall, we were working on a piece by an Australian composer, and it's very different. I don't know what's not that technology.
And what his thoughts.
I'm just going to back up. It's okay. We'll talk, and that's on YouTube. If you search my name on YouTube, you're welcome to go watch, and you can see the whole performance if you like. And you can follow me on Twitter. It's on there too. So we were working on this piece, and this will be the last thing, and I'll get out of the way for my colleagues here. and it's not notated in traditional musical notation, A, B, C, D, E, F, G on the staff. It uses what's called graphic notations to create symbols that the students have to interpret for themselves and bits of improvisation, and it freaked them out. The composer's goal was to make the kids take ownership, and they wanted it to make it a really unique performance, and they didn't like it, and they felt really weird and uncomfortable. It used improvised instruments. It was based on a Japanese haiku poem, and so we made taiko drums out of tires. If you wrap them with packing tape, you get a really nice drum sound. And so a couple of my kids, percussionists, went home and raided their parents' trunk in the car and built some tire drums and posted a video to my Schoology site. And it was really cool. And so I tweeted their video at the composer. And the composer tweeted back and was like, "That's so cool, how did the drums sound?" And so we started talking. And I mentioned that they're really not feeling comfortable doing this stuff. And I've told them, it's okay, and this is what you're supposed to do. You have permission. And I think it's a middle school thing. Nobody likes to go too far outside their comfort zone, and taking risks is hard. And so she said, "Well, I'll talk to them." Okay. So she stayed up really late one night. She's 14 hours ahead of us in Sydney, Australia. And we did it first thing Tuesday morning. And she talked to them with her Australian accent and said, "This is what I want for you. And this is how you can do it." And she gave us all these strategies, and we ended up using a bunch of butcher paper and sketching out our own composition based on the symbols on the page. And the kids got so excited, and they played it like they've never played it before. And so these are opportunities that we just wouldn't have without the technology we're blessed to have and be able to use each day in this district. So I guess that's all I have. I know I talk fast, and I just really like what I do, and it's exciting to have an opportunity. So thanks so much for your support. I'll turn it over to my colleagues in the art department.
Thank you. Your passion shows.
Yes, it does.
All right, so from the elementary art perspective now, we've got John Jurovich, who is at Liberty Tree Elementary School, and Casey Kirk, who is, I think, what probably feels to her like about 20 elementary schools, even though we only have 15. How many are you actually at? Six. So most of her time at Olentangy Meadows, but she travels, like I said, to multiple buildings. But what they're going to talk about is the art enrichment program. I talked about our schedule changes briefly earlier, and so one of the things they've really worked to do as an art department is develop this art enrichment for first graders to lay that groundwork for the success that Vince talked about earlier. So I'm going to just hand it over to them and let them take it away.
Thank you. All right, and as Anthony had said, at the end of last school year, a new elementary schedule was created to keep consistency throughout the district. And first graders now are going to get art twice a 5-day rotation instead of just the one time that they had in the past. So the elementary art teachers met this past summer to research best practices in art education and analyzed what would be best for our students here in Olentangy. So we unpacked the first grade standards to build a cohesive curriculum district-wide. And this was the result. The first time that we see first graders in a 5-day rotation, they are there for a traditional art experience that we have always done and we do for our students K through 5. And then the second time that they see us for an art enrichment course. All right. During an art enrichment class, we focus on an in-depth exploration of media, techniques, and processes through individual and collaborative works.
So, what does this really mean? In order to show you, let's walk you through an art enrichment unit that we have taught. The first and most basic unit is the pencil. Think about it. When were you ever taught how amazing just a pencil can be? To introduce the pencil, we explored children's books such as The Pencil and Andrew Drew and Drew.
Hey there, I'm Mr. Pencil, and this is my sidekick, Little Pinky, the eraser, and we're here to talk to you all about how to use pencils and erasers the correct way.
So this is a
If you
video
hold
John
them
created.
lightly, I'll make a nice light line.
with his students.
If you press a little bit harder, you'll get a nice medium line.
And he created one of those for almost every different medium we use. So the kids see a little clip for everything, and they really start to understand how to use the different tools. Let's see. Then students worked in their media books, and they are drawing a nature item with their newfound drawing skills. So after studying the pencil, they draw their leaf with the pencil with all the new tools that they've learned. We then explored the book, The Line, by Paula Basio, which has not a single word in it, but a story is told through one continuous line. Students then use movement to further understand what lines can do by walking in different kinds of lines around the room. That was a fun day. After individual practice, students work collaboratively with their pencil knowledge to create a visual narrative using one simple line. So these are some of my students' work in art enrichment at Indian Springs that made these, the first graders.
So, as new materials and techniques are introduced, students will explore more books, more videos. They'll also engage in more unique individual and collaborative art-making experiences. So here is an example of a first grade student's media book. Her name's Mahika, and she is a first grader at Liberty Tree. And basically, with each new material and technique, we take the students back to the same nature item, whether it be a leaf or flower, seed pod, and they work with this same exact item with every new material. And so this is where we're at so far at this point in the year. So here is her media book, and there is her leaf, a first grade student, drawing it with pencil on that very first day. Then we learned about pencils, went through the process Casey explained, then worked with Sharpie, again drawing that same leaf. Then with marker, and learning that markers don't just have to color in like traditional style. If you apply water to markers, they actually turn into watercolor paint, and working that through with first graders. Then crayons, as well as construction paper crayons that show up on dark colored paper. Oil pastel resist with watercolor. Chalk pastel. Dealing with transparencies when it comes to watercolor on top of old dictionary pages. And then just recently using tempera cakes. And so we have several more materials to get through as we go through the year, but the students are excited about these media books. They keep reliving this same imagery each time, and through that, they're able to grow in their understanding of this material and the techniques. So our belief is that through this art enrichment experience, students will have a firmer grasp of materials and techniques that will strengthen their foundation for the visual arts. And that's our art enrichment program. Thank you. Any questions?
So in first grade, they get art twice.
Yeah.
And then in second grade, they get art once a week.
Yeah, so
And then it goes back up to twice a week in third grade? or
no,
how's
the
it
way
work?
that do you mind if I explain the whole
Yeah.
schedule? Okay, so kindergarten gets art once a week, and then in first grade they get art and art enrichment, so they're seeing us twice, and then second, third, fourth, fifth, they only get art once. But the second and fifth graders get twice in a week, and the third and fourth graders get music twice in a week. So things are divvied up. And the students know when it's art versus art enrichment as well. They've got that part down, so which is really interesting. So they are simultaneously working on more traditional, like, projects, I guess you could call them, in their normal art time as well. So.
You know, the use of computers comes soon enough in their lifetimes. It's really great to see the progress that they went through with the pencil, marker, etc. That's just really good to see that they get those fundamentals and learn how to use those different weighted tools. I was on a plane recently, and across from me in the aisle was a woman, an adult woman, and she was doing the adult coloring book.
Coloring.
Yeah.
So it can stay with you, can't it?
Yeah, those are big now.
I think it's great when I go into an art room and I'll hear a student say, I can't do something, and the art teacher just simply says, yes, you can, I just haven't taught you how to do it yet. And they just have this incredible belief that they can get all the kids to do high-quality work. And, you know, I think back to that pencil drawing, we saw that first pencil drawing.
Good.
The painting of the Liberty student.
Mm-hmm.
That's where they started.
That's where it started.
Yeah,
They penciled that out first.
So our belief is this beginning foundation is just really gonna be wonderful for the entire K through 12 program. So.
And I want to emphasize too what Vincent said early on, that when he and I started this job 3 years ago, the elementary art curriculum was what was presented to us as this is what we need our curriculum to look like in English language arts, in elementary, secondary, and math. So that was kind of the model. And I think they were being a little modest too. So for example, the pencil video, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that was something the students wrote the script, the students acted it out, the students created that. And I think you involved, if I remember correctly, several different classes in the building, correct? Yeah. So every class, every kid had an opportunity to create that, again, to teach them those foundational skills. So, you know, they were enriching themselves in multiple ways, which is really cool. And then when they talked about the summer, like Casey, this is her first year in the district, didn't start till officially, August 1st, where the day was, but was there this summer, you know, and so that, writing the curriculum because they were that passionate about like this and we want this to work and we're going to write this curriculum and do it well. So they do a bang up job and really make a difference in the lives of our kids. So we want to emphasize that. So thank you for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
I hold them accountable to the legacy of art counts.
Yes.
One of the original K-12 art teachers here when we were one school district.
Yes, and it should be pointed out, my sister teaches in Pickerington. She teaches 3rd grade in Pickerington. Aren't you from Pickerington?
That's where I came from.
Yes.
Yes.
And she does not have dedicated art and music or gym teachers in her building every single day. And that's due to a 2011 levy failure. So 6 years later, they still do not have dedicated performing arts or gym teachers or librarians in their schools.
Thank you again. Item C is school safety update from Jennifer Eisman. Thank you.
And we all kind of panicked when the came in because we're like, oh my gosh. And then we're like, oh, we've got a safety presentation.
Well, I'm Jennifer Eisman. I am the Human Resources Supervisor here for the district, and I've got Deputy Doug Simila with me, and he is one of our school resource officers. And we're going to be talking to you a little bit today and share an update about our safety protocols and our safety plans here in the district. Deputy Simila is going to share with you a little bit about our ALICE program and about our school resource officer program. Please keep in mind that I can only share with you so much about what we do as far as safety goes. A lot of things we don't let the public know, so those things I won't be talking to you about today, but the things I will be talking to you are the things that we'd love to share with everybody in the community. Ooh. Why does safety matter? Well, safety matters because every day we are charged with the safety and protection of over 19,000 students, over 2,500 staff members, and countless visitors, substitutes, and all the other folks that come into our buildings. We take that very, very seriously. Some of our current safety practices and protocols include, we have received a $116,000 grant from the Ohio Department of Education for front entry improvements. With this grant, we've upgraded our camera system in our front entries. We've also fortified the front entry itself. We did also receive, as part, in addition to that $116,000, we received a $46,000 grant also from ODE for a Marks radio installation. Every single one of our buildings has a Marks radio installed. And that is essentially a panic button that goes directly to the sheriff's department, and it is used in the case of an active shooter or an armed intruder in one of our buildings. We do know they work. It has been bumped by a principal once or twice, and the sheriff's department and the police department does send the cavalry. So we do have those in all of our buildings, and it was a great thing for the Ohio Department of Education to be able to provide those for us. We do have safety plans. We worked really, really hard on the safety plans. They have been downloaded and approved by the ODE. We worked directly with the Office of Homeland Security to make sure that we could have the best safety plan that we could have. And we also have a gentleman from the Office of Homeland Security that really we have access to anytime we have a question or a concern, and they do kind of keep us updated on some things or concerns that they have as well. We do also use a program called Navigate. It is an online program that holds our safety plans, the maps of our buildings, any other pertinent safety information. It's all held online in the Navigate program. The Sheriff's Department, the Fire Department, any of the first responders have access to that, as well as the buildings, and we do here as well. So that if anything happens, they can access that information from a device, from an iPad. The 911 operators can pull up those maps directly from the 911 office, from the sheriff's office, and they can let everyone know, hey, that's in the east end of the building, and they can kind of direct the sheriff's office if anything would happen. There's also some really cool things in the Navigate program. Hopefully someday we'll be able to get live video feed. So again, if anything would happen, the Sheriff's Department can live stream. There are some firewall issues that we're kind of trying to work through, and we need to upgrade some more of our camera systems. But that's a really cool part of that program that hopefully someday we'll be able to use. We're also really lucky that we've got some folks in the safety industry that live in the district. We've worked with a company called Armada, and we worked together closely and went through most of our buildings, and that company provided us with a security threat and vulnerability assessment. It's about a 100-page assessment, and we went through that assessment and we've prioritized everything. And so we know, okay, this we can do immediately, this doesn't need any funds, this we need to budget for. So we've got a really good plan with a really good company that's helped us out. We also recently have given first responders access to all of our buildings. The Sheriff's Department can easily get into a building. When you walk up to one of our buildings, it's locked down. You can't get into any of the doors, you've got to buzz in. Well, we want the sheriff's office or any of the first responders, if anything would happen, to be able to get into that building immediately and not have to worry about being buzzed in or having to break down a door or a window. So they all have immediate access to our buildings, so that's a great thing. We do yearly online classes. Not only do we do classes like bloodborne pathogens or HAZCOM training, for chemicals or any things that are in our building as far as workplace safety goes, but we do courses like child abuse prevention, school violence prevention, and those things we can provide online to any of our teachers or any of our staff in the building. We also work with the Delaware County Sheriff's Office K-9 unit, and we do random drug searches of our middle schools and our high schools. We do a yearly safety walkthrough. We make sure that every building is walked through, either by myself or someone else on the team, and make sure that we're doing everything that we can do in all of those buildings. We also do building door checks. We make sure that, receiving doors are down, our doors aren't being propped open. If those things are being done, we make sure we let the principals know so that we can rectify and, see if there's something we can do to make sure that doesn't happen. We also do ALICE training. I know we've talked a little bit about ALICE training. Doug is going to expand on that a little bit for you. And then we have recently, in the past couple of years, we added 2 additional school resource officers, which is great. We now have 5 school resource officers in the district. And I would love to have Doug talk to you a little bit about our SRO program and the SRO responsibilities, and also our ALICE program.
Thank you. First of all, thanks for having me here. And I'll tell you, I've been with the Sheriff's Office for 17 years. And to tell you how passionate I am about this school district in particular, 11 of those 17 years in 2 different stints have been spent here working in the Olentangy School District. I am proud to be one of the 5 school resource officers that you guys help employ. I'm very passionate about this job, and I just love to work with kids. And I tell you, it makes it all worthwhile because my wife is a longtime kindergarten teacher in this school district. And between the 2 of us, we really can't go out shopping. We can't go out to eat anywhere without somebody coming up and recognizing one or both of us. But it's really awesome. And what's really awesome for me on a personal level is when I can walk into an elementary school and I'll see a classroom full of kindergartners or first graders going down the hallway, and they've got one finger here and one finger or 2 fingers up here to be quiet, and you walk in and they all have a big outburst of, oh, there's Deputy Doug. It's great. So I love it. I'm very passionate about it. You cannot have just any deputy sheriff do this. You have got to have a passion for working with kids, and you have to have a different mentality, or you will not survive in these schools. It is not a job that you take just to get a Monday through Friday schedule. So we are very particular about the men and women that we bring into this program. So I'm really happy to be part of that. We do employ 5. Or your school district helps pay for that, obviously. Each high school has their own school resource officer. And the one at Olentangy High actually shares some of that responsibility with Shanahan Middle School as well. I am one of 2 school resource officers that actually breaks up all of the middle schools, or with the exception of Shanahan, and the elementaries. So I basically have 2 middle schools, Berkshire and Orange, and 8 elementaries, all on the east side of 23. The roles for each one of us is different because, I mean, there's some overlap, but it's definitely distinguishable between us, because in the high school, what they encounter is often going to be a lot different than what I encounter. They encounter more kids having, maybe drug issues and such, whereas I do more custody issues and things like that. In the elementary school, I can tell you the vast part of my job is actually about being proactive and doing education. There isn't a day that goes by that I'm not teaching at least anywhere between 2 and 5 classes somewhere in this district, and I am very proud that even currently, today, I still get emails from teachers wanting to sign up. I mean, I teach everything from bike, water, gun safety, to peer pressure, to drugs and alcohol, and I can't wait till the month of October is over with, because I will have done about 75 Halloween safety presentations or so by the end of the month. So that gets tiresome, and there's days you go home without a voice, but it's very, very rewarding. But anyway, we are so happy to work along with Olentangy, and as Jennifer had touched on, we just got, like she said, the swipe cards, because our guys have had questions too at the Sheriff's Office. What is this house training you guys are doing? How do we get access to the buildings? What is our role? What do you need from us? Because in the old days, if we had an active shooter, or we had some type of bad situation, in the old days, you would set up a perimeter on the outside, and you would establish a mobile command center. And then years later, we developed a training called Quad, where you'd get 3 or 4 deputies or police officers in a diamond shape, and you would go in facing all different directions, and you would look for the threat and take it out. But we do it differently now. And if you respond to a school with an active shooter, you will go it alone, or whomever else is there with you. So I actually, during your Christmas break, with a handful of other guys, went through some more additional training on exactly how to clear these buildings and how we can do it based on the number of people that we have with us. So again, we take it very, very seriously. But more than anything, in this role, it is about developing relationships with the students and the staff. I work with them on a professional level. I work with your staff on a personal level. I've had a lot of teachers over the years come to me with questions and concerns about things, and it's just all about really developing relationships. So much like on the road patrol, you might be going after an armed robber or burglar, or you may be helping somebody change their tire. The same applies in the schools. You never know what kind of situation is actually going to come your way. So one of the things that we've actually done is try to install the ALICE training with the school staff. We are really, really proud of that. I'll go to this next one, I guess. There we go. I guess you guys are somewhat familiar with this. Your staff as a whole has really, really taken hold of this. And I know Jen can attest to this. We have had so many staff members of all levels, from teachers and your certified staff down to custodial and cafeteria workers, that have all come to us and said this is some of the absolute best training we've ever got. We didn't develop it. It's been around forever, but now we have it. The option of just basically sitting in the corner of a room and hoping that the bad guy doesn't come in and get you does not work. And one of the things we had to kind of overcome was a little bit of the thinking from some not teachers, but some parents, that we were teaching their kids to fight. Mm-hmm. We are not teaching kids to fight. More than anything, we are telling these kids to get out of the building, follow the instruction of the teacher, whether it be via a door or whether it's through a window, to get out of the building and evacuate. If you cannot evacuate, we are telling them to, obviously lock doors, barricade doors, and maybe even try to get out of the window while a barricade's being built by the teacher. And if that doesn't work, and it's our lives that are on the line, then we have to do something. So we went through a lot of training with these scenarios. I don't know if you guys have ever seen these scenarios. I know some have been on the news for some school districts and such. Throwing things, anything that you throw at an active shooter will help distract them. It will not, their shooting will be off mark. And they got to see actually how that applied. So we are very, very glad and proud to be part of that. Your entire district, to my knowledge, has been trained. We continue to do additional training every summer when you get all your new hires. I think we did close to 100 people or so or more Okay, so last summer we did that, and we're going to continue to do that because it's very important. So now we have guys, we have a couple school resource officers that are back on the road patrol, and they are taking the message of Alice for us back to the road patrol. So during their roll calls and such, they are training them on exactly what we are doing and what they can expect. So we are really working in conjunction with them. And I think that's,
Is that all I got?
I think so. I think so.
Thanks, Deputy Simla. To kind of close, I want to talk to you a little bit about some of our future plans and some things that we would like to do in the future. Of course, we'd like to continue to monitor and improve our safety protocols, make changes as necessary, make things better, always look to make things better. We also want to start a community safety committee. We get lots of questions from the public about, what about concealed carry? What about metal detectors? What about this? What about that? Folks have some really, really good ideas out there. We have safety professionals out there. We've got lots of, detectives. We've got sheriffs. We've got parents that are interested. We'd love to get those people together and really kind of talk as a district with those folks and use their expertise and get their opinions on how we can keep the district safe. We would also like to provide this summer ALICE training for our ESC substitutes. Those substitutes through the ESC have not been provided. They don't have anyone to provide them ALICE training. We want to make sure that anybody that's coming in here, whether it be substitute or any, knows and understands ALICE training. And so if something happens and they're the only teacher in that room, they can direct those kids and those kids will know what to do. We'd also like this summer to do an ALICE update or a refresher course for the current staff that have already gone through ALICE training. I think that course is probably going to focus on warning signs, knowing what to look for, and this person might potentially be violent. I think that's the way that we're going to go with that program and kind of do a refresher this summer for anyone that would like to attend. We also are going to be working with the Delaware County Sheriff's Office to do a mock drill this summer. We're going to have the police involved, the SWAT team involved, the fire department involved, and the Delaware County Sheriff's Office has said that the administration would be welcome to be involved in that, really do kind of a live drill, and so we can look at our safety plan. Administration can say, okay, this is, we need to change this, we need to work on this, or this works really well. We also are going to work on our building secretary training. Specifically, we're going to work on our visitor entrance procedures. We want to make sure that the secretary, knows, do you recognize the person at the door? Does their verbal reason for requesting entry raise any concerns for you? Is there somebody behind them that's going to piggyback and enter behind them? Kind of work on some of those things and practice some of those things, give them questions to ask if somebody's going to enter one of the buildings. We're also going to let them know that it's okay to say no. If you have a strange feeling, it's okay to say no, and they can call the principal, they can call one of their SROs, and we can work with them to figure out exactly what we need to do if they do have an issue letting someone in the building. Lastly, I think we need to make sure that we're budgeting appropriately for any necessary safety upgrades. Make sure that we're spending wisely if we need to spend anything, or if we can get support from the community. I know that we've done a lot of things with Go Buckets and things like that for our ALICE training that we have gotten donated. So we're going to continue to work on that and make sure that we can do whatever we need to do to make sure that the kids and the employees and everybody that walks in our buildings is safe. Does anybody have any questions? Please.
Doug. And by the way, he works a lot of our football games, which is nice because he knows the kids that are coming through the gates, and and they know him, so they know that they shouldn't act up. But when you're in the classroom buildings, what type of weapons do you have on you? Like, do you have a gun with you, or?
Yeah, this is what you see.
Okay.
Many years ago, in fact, we were just talking about this actually last time I saw Mr. Rafe. When I did this year ago under the DARE program, we did not carry a duty belt. This was all gone. But no, we are in full uniform, vest, gun belt, and everything. So I have my gun, I have an ASP, I have pepper spray, I have a taser. I'm equipped with a radio and handcuffs. So we have the whole gamut is actually with us.
Okay.
So yeah, but while you're on that subject, that's part of the mentality though. The law enforcement officer, we have a role, but again, it's so different in the schools because my mentality, and I think I can speak for my colleagues that are in this, we're not looking to arrest and charge every kid that basically violates the law. I had a situation, I'll tell you, one of the things that's coming up more and more all the time is the misuse of social media. and photographs and videos that are inappropriate being sent. Now, I've dealt with that twice in the last couple of weeks. Now, on the road patrol, that kind of thing's happened. A lot of times they're going to slam them and they're going to try to charge somebody. The one I had last time, I didn't see where it was really going to benefit anybody, and trying to build a positive relationship with the kids and having the administrators basically in conjunction with, because they felt the same way, we thought, let's use this as an educational moment. So I tried to build a relationship. I just went into Berkshire Middle School at 4 o'clock yesterday to talk to some kids, a handful of them that were doing some bad things like that, and they were all serving a suspension. And I talked to them on behalf of what can happen in school, what the law can do, but then I dropped all that and I said, but here's the deal. I'm a dad, and I have 2 teenage daughters, and one of mine did something really stupid like this once, and this is what really goes on. So if they can see me as a person and a dad, more so than just this uniform, that's what it's all about. So yes, we have all this stuff. No, I've never had to use it in the schools. Never had to put handcuffs on a pair of handcuffs on a kid yet, and I hope that I can keep it that way too.
I have a question for both of you. So, do you think that that our kids understand what their role is in our safety, in the building safety and protocols? I mean, because a lot of what you talk about is for the teachers and the staff and adults and keeping people out of buildings. But do you think the kids understand their role and what they're supposed to do? And if that's the first part, and the second part is how do you continue to keep them aware of that?
Well, I think, and you can tag on if you need to, Doug, but I think during our ALICE, the first part of our ALICE drills that we do during the year is a discussion. So we discuss safety. We discuss what are you going to do if this happens, and we also say, see something, say something. If you think that there is something weird or there's something alarming or someone's behaving in a different way or you've heard something, then we encourage them to come to one of the SROs, and that's one of the really great things about having one in most of the buildings is that they're able to have those really positive relationships, and they know the kids that might need a little more help. And so they notice when things change. Hey, this kid was a really good kid and now something has changed. So that's a really positive thing about having them in the classroom. But we do work with them in our ALICE training, and we really encourage see something, say something.
But and then also, I mean, we tell them, like, if you're a kindergarten teacher, like with my wife, I get it. They know that their role is going to be to do what she says: get out through a door, get out through a window. They're not going to be assisting to build a barricade and shoving stuff in front of it. But we've often said, as you deal with older kids, they may actually be assisting you with that. So they need to understand that role. And we have gone in and said, hey, look, kids, because this district, I mean, they did a wonderful job. They took out every apparatus that was necessary, so these windows no longer, because every building was different. I mean, the way these windows are built, depending on the year it was built. Some barely opened up, some swing up. Well, now everything just swings right open, so these kids can actually get right out. But it hasn't been without any difficulty, I'll tell you that, because I've had the occasion to be in a lot of buildings when they did these drills. Some just incidentally, some I was asked to come over. And it hasn't been done perfect. And I've actually gone to principals and said, hey, look, because Jenna's done a great job of putting out exactly what these drills are supposed to look like. I'm like, look, this is where we need to improve. This was great. This didn't work so well. So we've gone around, and so I'll walk around with them as they actually go around to their school to look at the barricades and see what the teachers are actually doing. Because in my line of work, it is all about training. How you train is how you're going to react in a situation. And if we're not training this properly, then we can't expect that either the staff or the kids are going to know what to do. So again, we're taking it seriously, but it's going to take a little bit of time. Every school has done at least 2 drills. I know that was the district's request, 2 drills by the end of, or by Christmas break. We've accomplished that. It's a little too cold to get them to evacuate right now, but everybody's going to be doing another one in the springtime, and hopefully I'll be making my way around the school again to see how that works. So. But I've had lots of principals that they take it seriously, and they've called up with questions and stuff to ask how to do it too. So I think they're all on board.
Great, thank you.
I have a question. So
Sure,
did I interrupt you?
sure.
You said staff training. Is it all staff? So like aides and custodians and anybody that's in a building?
Yes, and we in fact even trained the bus drivers on a bus. So we went down to the transportation department and we worked with them on a bus, and gave them techniques and tactics that they could use while they were driving or on a bus. So yeah, everybody in the district, aides, a lot of long-term subs come to the training. Anybody that wants to come, we'll take.
And when it comes to the scenarios where we go in with actual pellet guns, and we're the bad guy, and they're throwing tennis balls, which are simulating anything, staplers, books, whatever, they get into it. And I will tell you, because we've made this joke before, the toughest group, you want to hear this? your food services. Those are hostile, and they're not afraid to go after you and attack you. That was the hardest group of all to deal with. So, yeah.
And we don't do that with the students. That's just for the adults
Just the
and
staff.
yeah.
Yeah, just the staff.
So I know, I've been through it, Dave, you've
Yeah.
been through it. Did you get a chance?
I didn't go through it. Stacy did.
Otherwise committed.
It was good, it was the first
You,
watch.
you guys are welcome anytime.
It was, yeah, that's something we should, as a board, should do again.
I
as
know
you-
the middle schoolers were taught how to barricade. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, and we
we're
really try to
helping
do it in
build
an age-appropriate fashion. You know, of course, again, like Deputy Simula said, you know, we're not going to have kindergartners push a barricade, but if you've got, you know, a pretty big high school kid, then, you know, they can help and move a bookcase or something in front of a door. You know, we really believe that it's a life skill, that we haven't taught kids to sit in a corner anymore and do nothing, that we've taught them to be active and to fight for themselves.
And the average response time in the United States before law enforcement gets to an active shooting is 5 to 6 minutes. I think it's going to be quicker in this school district because we have a substation very close to here, right by your Oasis there. It's going to be quicker. So it's all about surviving that. And the thing is with the barricades, that if a bad guy comes by, they know they have a brief period of time to do what they want to do. And they know that the end's going to come, and we all know what happens in these situations. So if they start pulling on doors, which the windows are blocked and the doors are barricaded, they can't get in, they're moving on somewhere else, and those kids are going to be safe. So just that little bit of putting a strap around the handle of barricade is going to, it could save somebody's life. It will save somebody's life.
Just a comment about your assessment in regard to other departments of the district. I was very happy to hear you mention your assessment where you're prioritizing what you need to do over a period of time, and then obviously assigning a budget. We've been, fortunately, and kudos to the district, not too long ago, we've had a report from our facilities committee and from our technology group department. They've created master plans and budgeted those master plans for at least a 5-year time period, and that is great to see that you're doing the same thing for growth.
Yeah, I just want to point out with somebody in our audience, Vince Pasquale, he sent me an email a while ago. Hi, Vince. Thanks for being here. About this issue, so we thought it'd be timely to put together a report. I think he's going to be our active first recruit of our community safety committee because he has a high awareness of these issues and has asked some good questions. And so, again, just another example of our strong community involvement. So.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And Mr. Wright has a item on the district calendar for 2018.
Not again.
Yes, good evening, and I know it has not been a calendar year since we've talked about the calendar, but here we are. And we're very excited to present our first draft to you tonight. This has been a result of about a month and a half worth of studying the feedback that we received for the approved 16-17 calendar, and we made a few tweaks. So at your station, each of you have a draft of what we're going to present to you after we receive our feedback. So in accordance with Board Policy 8210 and our OTA negotiated agreement, Article 29 speaks to procedures for it being reviewed, and a higher revised code all require that we have a 30-day window where the public and our community can view a draft of the calendar and provide feedback. So with this tonight, we present to you what will become live tomorrow. Just as we did in the fall or late summer, we will have a link shared with our community to be on all of our web pages, and our community members as well as our staff members will have an opportunity to provide feedback on this draft before you today. The draft that you have is a composite, again, of the feedback that we've received, and follows closely the model that was approved for 16-17. Just a couple of highlights for that information. We see, again, trying to stick to a third Wednesday in August start date. And again, as we look down the road, that will, and anytime we can keep it on that third Wednesday as our goal, as our start, so we get some consistency on the start time. The remainder of the first semester is almost identical to what we've seen over the past several years. Our winter break ending slightly before the Christmas holiday, and then some extra time there built on for a staff workday after the winter break. Looking at the second semester, we did get some feedback about where our spring break fell, so we pulled back from our philosophy of having spring break split our third and fourth quarters, and so it's moved back a week to provide some opportunities and a little cleaner break before we go into the final stretch of the school year. So that's a little bit different on this calendar. And then the final difference is our second semester in lieu of conference day, being scheduled for April 27th on this draft, is as late as it's ever been. But as we looked at it, we wanted to get as close to a natural break between the long time frame of the fourth quarter. So that falls very much in the middle of the fourth quarter. And then finally, we see that our school year will end and teachers will be done well before the Memorial Day holiday weekend. So one other item of note, it's a question we often get. If you look in the lower left-hand corner of your sheet there, the number of days in each semester. We have for several years planned extra days in our second semester in order to account for the number of days that are disrupted due to testing. So we do load some more in that because we know we lose a little bit of instructional time in the second semester. At this time, again, I'll remind our process will be opening this up for public feedback starting tomorrow. Our communications department is working on links to be shared with our building principals and their listservs. That information will be collected until early or mid-March, and then we will come back to you after looking through all that feedback with what we will ask you to approve in the first board meeting in April. This time I'll take any questions you have. Ms. Fiesel.
In September, on the calendar, it says you're off on the 18th, but in the center section, it says your professional development is the 19th.
As this is a draft, that's the kind, this was, so, correct.
Okay.
Yep.
And then, do you know what day graduation would be?
As we have tried to establish, and we're working through that, we don't have that contracted. We want to look at once AP testing has completed, then how many days do we have to allot for our seniors to be in session? So that's not set. Once this is approved, then I think we can firm that up. And based on this model, we're hopeful, again, this is hopeful, that our commencement exercises occur the last or the third weekend, and typically we've moved to a Sunday model, the third weekend in May.
Add on, similar to what Julie said in January, February, you got a couple of dates that don't match, so those are things you're just going to fix before this goes out?
Yes. And again, what we've plugged in are and you look at the colors and the dates there, and that'll all match up with the appropriate model in the middle.
I have a question. Tell me again why the spring break is not the week of the 19th.
For two reasons. What we found this year, and we heard some feedback after the approved calendar for 16-17, we have several of our spring sports teams who choose to travel and to get competition out of our climate. So either in the Carolinas or Florida, where they can do that. The way that pairs up with Ohio High School Athletic Association's rules for when they can compete, they lose that opportunity with our 16-17 calendar. So another thing we looked at too is we wanted to build a little more time in the third quarter or in that time before break, just in case testing was changed again by our legislators. So we wanted to build just a small buffer in there just to give us a little wiggle room on that.
Okay. Thank you.
Great. Any other questions?
Thank you, Randy.
All right, thank you very much.
And our final presentation from Jack Fetty on the update, the first part of our academic report.
Good evening. Good meeting so far, huh? Lots of good stuff. Very happy to be here to talk about what we've been doing in the academic division. What I will be talking with you tonight, and feel free to jump in at any point, we're going to talk about our academic continuous improvement plan, which is something that I've presented to you in years past. We present a continuous improvement plan to explain what we're working on in order to always be getting better. We'll talk about the recent special education state audit, or the state selective review, and I'll tell you some things that we know about the report card and the things we still don't know about the state report card. So jumping into it, here's a snapshot of our continuous improvement plan for this school year. The two goals that we set as a academic division is, in layman's terms up there, is to earn the highest ratings possible on the state report card by September of 2016. When we set that goal, that was the date by which the new state report card was going to be finally finalized, and our goal was to know what that looked like and then meet that right away. There are some changes still in progress, but our goal and our perpetual goal is to always have the highest ratings possible on the state report card. Our other goal is to develop each student as college and career ready by allowing them to earn college credit in high school or to complete some type of a career development experience like our mentorship or teacher academy classes or programs at the Career Center, beginning with the class of 2018. And that's going to be a tough one to meet, but it's a very challenging goal, but we think it's really appropriate. We believe that we provide great experiences here in Olentangy, and by the time you graduate high school, you should have a head start on college or the career of your choice, or you should have tried a career that you learn you don't want to participate in and rule one out, which is what we hear a lot of times from the mentorship kids. They think they know what they want to do, and they experience that, and then they get a clearer picture of what they want to take in college. So one of the action steps to get us to that point is our curriculum blueprints. Vince and Anthony, who were up here earlier, have been leading that process, and Peggy McMurray is now fully involved there as well. But the goal here is for what in EduSpeak is a guaranteed and viable curriculum. Robert Marzano is one of the leading educational researchers, and he talks about the need for districts to have a guaranteed and viable curriculum and the lack of districts who actually have that, or the few districts that actually have that. And what that really means, guaranteed and viable, means consistency, so that students know and families know what to expect in each course and each grade level. Obviously, with 23 schools, consistency is a tall task here, and we try to, we're building those blueprints. We're going to have those on the website soon. It's been a work in progress for 2 years now, where we bring teachers together to build these blueprints, and we're proud of them, and we're going to want to display them, and a good curriculum is constantly under review, so we want them on the website so that our teachers, our parents, our students can look at them and constantly provide input and feedback. So it's been a huge undertaking, and again, what Vince and Anthony talked about earlier with that art curriculum being the model. When this started, Mark and I did some reading, heard some speakers talk about blueprinting, and we immediately drew that correlation to our art program, and we said this is what we want to do for all of our programs. The content standards are that. They're just standards, and they are what tests are designed from. Curriculum is richer than just standards. These blueprints are our curriculum. These are locally controlled, locally created, what we're teaching in each course and why and how. So that's one of the things related to that CIP that I wanted to share with you. Another thing is professional growth. We've had as of tomorrow, we will have 3 district PD days this year focused on providing students with opportunities for critical thinking in the classroom. That's a big concept, and teachers really dig into that. But the idea of critical thinking in the classroom, just again, think back to the fine arts presentation and what we're asking students to do in an art class. That's the type of critical thinking and application of knowledge that we want to see students doing K through 12, and we're constantly working on helping our teachers to develop those abilities in their classroom. We've also have a new partnership with Otterbein for about a year now, a little less than a year. We've had so far this year 5 classes taught or co-taught by Otterbein professors, classes for our teachers, voluntary classes for our teachers that have been really well attended. If you attended the diversity conference last week, one of the Otterbein professors, Dee Knobloch, was there leading a session as well. It's a great opportunity for our teachers to learn from some really excellent faculty. And then Otterbein also hosted this past summer, and we'll do again a summer institute at Otterbein for our staff, which is a great opportunity. Within that professional growth is teacher evaluation. OTES, the Ohio Teacher Evaluation System, is still the law of the land and the way we evaluate teachers here in Olentangy as necessary, though we have made modifications to that to make it take the state minimums and make it apply to best practice here in Olentangy in terms of what we really need. But as a part of that, we collect formal walkthrough data. So outside of teacher evaluations, where every teacher gets observed every year, we do informal walkthroughs, which are short 5-10-minute visits to classrooms where principals document feedback based on what they're seeing in terms of instruction and giving that feedback back to the teachers. We have a computerized system that's providing that feedback. And when I pulled the data at the end of the first semester, we had documented over 1,600 or nearly 1,600 walkthroughs so far this year. So, we ask a lot of our principals, and one of those things is to be in classrooms. And that's a pretty good number. That's pretty impressive. If you divide that across 23 buildings, it's a lot of classroom visits in the first semester this year. And then lastly, related to growth, we have building leadership teams, which are teams of teachers hired by the principal or selected by the principal to help distribute the leadership throughout the building, to have teacher buy-in. We have great partnerships with our teachers, and we work really well together. The principals aren't sole experts in a building. They work with their teachers, and we as a curriculum department and really as a central office work with those leadership teams to work towards their building CIP goals, to prepare for our digital conversion, which you'll hear about, I believe, at the next meeting from Mr. Sexton, and to do a lot of the work that we've been promoting in the past few years with equity and inclusion. So there's a lot of work on that one slide. Another effort is personalized learning. One of the great things we've accomplished in the past few years and is really blossoming this year is our enrichment and intervention time at the elementary level, which is consistent time through all the buildings for teachers to not offer new instruction, but to look at what are kids needing enrichment in or what are kids needing intervention in, and taking time to do that. We're all about gap closing and living our mission of facilitating maximum learning for each kid, and that time is explicitly for making sure that no student is falling through the gaps anywhere. We also personalize learning with blended course content, online course content. You see some of the courses at the high school level where we currently have students taking courses in a blended atmosphere, which allows for some greater flexibility, which ties into that college and career readiness goal. So all of the students, or many of the students who are doing mentorship at the high school this year, are taking advantage of our English 9, 10, 11, or 12 course in order to have more flexibility to be in the field in their chosen career. We have our Summer Academy, summer school coming up, where we're offering wonderful opportunities for kids. Summer school is not just about remediation, it's also about acceleration. And we have a summer enrichment experience for our non-credit bearing courses, our elementary and middle school kids, that we're going to roll out for the first time this year, which we hope to tell you more about soon. But just more of these wonderful opportunities for students to constantly be learning even over the summer. We had 21 principals so far enrolled in our blended learning cohort. We create these small cohorts of principals to learn how best to use blended learning in their buildings, and we have 50 freshmen piloting the Global Scholars Diploma Program, which is a really exciting program where students are getting, or our students are focusing on a global perspective, a really focused global perspective as they're also completing their high school graduation requirements. There are some other districts around the state who are doing that as well, and I believe we will be presenting more on that Global Scholars Program to you very soon also. Vince DiTilio, who is here, has led that project, and people are passionate about it already. Another element of our plan was universal screening in response to intervention. You've heard us talk about AimsWeb before as our universal screener. As of this year, students in all of our elementary schools will have this universal screening 3 times per year. Next year it'll be K-8. We're still doing the rollout there. I mentioned the EI time earlier, which is an opportunity for elementary students. We have intervention study centers at middle school and high school as well. It's similar to the EI time. We have data teams at each building now that are implementing response to intervention strategies. We've made some modifications this year to our new student enrollment paperwork, so when you come to Olentangy, we're being a little more specific about what we're asking parents about their children so that we can be more helpful to them right off the bat. And we have this, Peggy McMurray brought this wonderful idea of a letter sounds compact disc and audio file for our incoming kindergartners so that our kids can start working on their letter sounds as the summer before kindergarten, as they're going through the summer before kindergarten, which is a great thing because that's one of those key fundamental skills. So I'm just really proud of the work we've done there. Okay, on to the special education audit. The past couple of days we had some visitors from the Ohio Department of Education and state support team here to review 25 school-age files and 5 preschool student files. It's a selective review. It's a random process. Supposed to happen about every 5 years. So we were selected this year, so they came. They tell us what files they want. We have no involvement in the process other than strict compliance. And they're going to take a look at how our special education program's working, if we're doing what we say we're doing, and how well we're doing it. They had a stakeholder feedback session in this room on the 9th. They did interviews with teachers and administrators on the 9th, and then on the 10th they were out in classrooms seeing if what's in our IEPs is being practiced in the classrooms. And we should get a summary report that we will certainly let you know about, and they're telling us 60 to 90 days. And then lastly, the state report card. On January 14th, they released 3 sections of the state report card. One of those was the K-3 literacy grade. Our grade this year looks like it's going to be a C. I will remind you that a C, according to the new report cards, is the expected target. C means you're on target, that's the goal. And A means you're well above the target, but believe me, we're not happy with the C, we want the A's. Prepared for success has to do with like our AP courses, our College Credit Plus. They released some data, but there is not going to be a grade just yet in that category. And then our graduation rate, we get a grade for our 4-year grad rate and our 5-year, and both of those will be A's. Part 2 of the report card, the performance index, the indicators, the value added, what used to be called AYP is now annual measurable objectives, AMOs, or gap closing also in the report card language. All of that should be released by February 25th. And the state is still tweaking how they're going to release that. We know there was a lot of discussion. A lot of students opted out last year as a result of the PARCC assessments. Preliminary data is going to, for lack of a better word, ding the district if a student selected to opt out. And the state's trying to figure out a way to best report that data. And I mean, we've not seen a year like this ever in terms of the confusion throughout the state at what is being reported, what is being collected. It's a daily experience, for lack of a better word, to see what's happening.
This morning that they're going to report 2 PI scores, one with the opt-outs and one without, and that was a compromise that Representative Brenner came up with because of House Bill 420.
Right. And one of the things I mentioned to Representative Brenner about that a week or so ago when I met with him was what is an opt-out? Because as you remember, the PARCC test comprised a lot of tests and a lot of parts of each of those tests. So some students opted out of one part of a test, not a whole test. So if a student opted out of just a part of a subject area test, is that an opt-out? If it's a whole subject area test, is that an opt-out?
Did you get an answer?
No. He heard me, though, to his credit. He heard me. So, I asked Jeanette Kenny, who's our supervisor of data and assessment, and she'll be here when we have the full report card because she can talk about this with just much more knowledge than me at this point. But I said, give clarity. Good one.
Clarity.
But I said, Jeanette, give me a statement. Give me a statement that we really believe that about the testing. And this is what we came up with, is that the validity and the reliability of this data remains in question. And if you're following the news, you know that. But here, we're still going to use the information as one measure to evaluate our success towards fulfilling our mission. I have no delusions that the data is going to be perfect, but it's still going to be our data, and it's still going to be publicly displayed like these banners we're so proud of, and we're going to own it. And as you know, we have a annual report, and we measure our success in many ways beyond the state report card, and this is still going to be one way that we're going to measure ourselves. And, you know, where we think it's more bogus than other areas, we'll certainly be honest and say it, but it's still going to be our data, and we're still going to own it. So, that's cards on the table before this stuff comes out. We still care what it says. We want it to be right. It's disappointing that there's so much confusion around the state report card right now. But we still believe in an accountability system, and I think, our community deserves it, and we hope to have one that we can all understand and explain sometime really soon.
Jack, this data validity and it's
Yeah.
just not an Olentangy.
Right. Oh, absolutely
issue.
not.
It's everybody's going to be going through the same thing. So everyone's going to be reporting back to the stakeholders of what this means and providing an explanation, understanding of that it may not be perfect, and it is based on changes out of our control.
As rough
Is that
as
accurate?
As rough as our ride has been, other districts have actually had it worse. It's happening everywhere. I mean, entire tested populations data has been lost or
Westerville.
misplaced. There's just confusions everywhere. It's not just an Olentangy thing, absolutely. And, it is what it is, but like I said, we're going to look at it and we're going to use it. It would have been nice to have this data, at the beginning of the year to use it this year. It's less useful to us at the end of February when it's data from the 14-15 school year. But we're going to take it as it comes and do with it what we can.
And 150 community engagement events into the school year. Brian's heard it numerous times. Most of you have been at a coffee chat, or all of you have been at a coffee chat to hear us talk about our academic performance. We use these measures. We know they're not the standard that which our community holds us by. It doesn't matter what our results are. When they're great, we celebrate them for a few minutes, but we know they're never good enough. We always want them to be better. And that seems to be resonating well in our community. They understand that. They have the same high standards. So.
But we anticipate that parents are going to continue to opt kids out moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, they always have. It was a media story this year, and it happened more often this past year.
That was my follow-up. Is there a correlation to the exposure that the media has presented for it? And that drove it? There's also a huge social media scene that is running with this, at breakneck speed sometimes. And, I'm wondering if at some point, because we have reduced the amount of testing here, if we're going to continue to see that. I know it's probably impossible to predict, but if, from what you're hearing, do you anticipate do we have an anomaly, a spike, or?
Yeah,
I'm asking you to predict, and that's probably not fair. But.
Obviously, testing became highly politicized, and that seems to be dying down a little bit, at least. Certainly, parents can still opt out and have and always will. But what we're trying to do is help families understand the purpose of these tests in terms of giving the school useful information to make ourselves better, to make school better for your students, to accurately represent what we're doing. But we also want to remind people, too, that this report card, going back to that fine arts presentation, there's nothing on this report card that begins to explain the full education that our students receive.
I agree.
And, Anthony shared the federal language about the whole child and arts and that. I mean, we do things here and other districts as well. School is about more than what shows up on the report card. Unfortunately or fortunately, it's the measure that's consistent across the schools. But we just want to continue to educate people that we're striving for all A's. We're not going to be happy with anything other than all A's. But it's never going to be our end-all, be-all. And that's why we have the annual report. That's why we have a continuous improvement plan. And, we always want to get better.
And Vincent Anthony will attest to the curriculum blueprinting process that they've employed with our staffs and the cornerstone task development, that our curriculum that is developed locally by our teachers is not solely aligned to these tests. Of course, the tests are new again this year, so we're not just preparing our kids. They're aligned to the standards, which are supposed to be aligned to the tests, but our curriculum blueprints are just great working documents that have our kids prepared for success.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So the class of 2018 was supposed to have the state testing go towards their graduation requirements, correct? So that was the park,
Yep.
which is gone.
Well,
And-
it didn't have to be the park. It's whatever tests are in place, so it's just switching now.
Okay, because now the OGT is gone for them as well. So is it going to now be the air?
Yes. So with the class of 18, the OGT went away as the
Right.
requirement, and end-of-course tests became the new requirement. So last year, those end-of-course tests were brought to you by Park and Air, depending on the subject. This year, it's going to be AIR. So the test can and will change on
So
the
if
students.
if you opt out of those tests, does that would affect your ability to graduate, wouldn't it?
Potentially, yeah.
Well, but that's my question too, because the other piece of that is, if you score a non-remedial score on the ACT or SAT, that counts too.
It does.
So could a student perform very well on the SAT or ACT and then opt out of the state tests and
Right.
not be penalized? I don't know how, because they are assigned so many points for
Yeah.
each.
Right.
And I don't know anymore. I don't know.
The student would not be penalized. Will the district be penalized? Is that remains a
Oh, well,
question.
yeah, the district
Probably.
would, probably. But for the parent who could care less
Mm-hmm.
about penalizing the district, they just want to make sure their child has enough to graduate.
Mm-hmm.
Can they just get by on the SAT or ACT?
Yes. They can get a high enough score on the ACT and not
that
need
I'm
the
advocating
points.
for that, but
Right.
You could see
Right.
where it could
Yeah,
be a
where it would-
strategy.
yeah.
And the state's still
Yeah.
going to be testing all juniors on a test, most likely the ACT
Mm-hmm.
or SAT is what the rumors are, but they haven't made that decision yet. That's 3 years, later.
Are we still, I thought there was one ACT that as a district we were administering. Is it
No,
to
the PSAT.
PSAT.
The PSAT is
okay.
what we administer.
10th graders?
Yes.
Yes.
Is that right, 10th? Yeah.
11th.
11th, sorry, thank you. Yeah, so the prepared for success grade, Julie, to your point, that's not graded right now. There still remain a lot of questions around how that's even going to be graded, because districts there's so many different ways to get credit in that area, but is all the credit going to be applied equally? Is the ACT score comparable to AP participation? 83% of our students take AP classes.
Yeah.
But what's that going to count towards? So that's another one that I brought up with Representative Brenner, as I urged him to continue to look at that so that we can get to that place where we have a report card that makes sense.
Okay, and I don't want to throw a wrench into your planning.
Yeah.
But now ODE, and I just printed this off today, ODE is seeking input on the process to revise the Common Core standards.
Yeah.
So all of this planning that we've done, I mean, I've got it right here. I printed it off from my legislative report. So what the heck does that mean for us?
Well, and that according to Representative Brenner.
Yeah, because he's quoted in here.
Yeah, and I will say this, me personally, this is unfortunate. This is a bummer. Because these standards were originally adopted in 2008.
I would say 2008, yeah.
And, I mean, I began working on these that year in my former district with teachers to develop local curriculum that we can implement. Came to Olentangy, the process had already begun. We're still in the process. Representative Brenner said that when they hire a new state superintendent, one of the prerequisites that in his mind
That he wants to pay $1 million to.
is to have somebody who's going to develop Ohio-only standards, which is what we had prior to the Common
Yes.
Core and Ohio's current learning standards for, years and years. So to go back to that model, and when we went from that model to the current model, standards, they never change that much. That's kind of the fact, there's not a huge difference. But little changes have huge effects in terms of classroom instruction. So, you're never going to move chemistry to kindergarten and spelling, 3-letter words to 9th grade. I mean, the curriculum, the standards to some degree, just only make sense one way. But the intricacy of the standards and how they relate to the assessments could all change again. And I don't want to scare Vince and Anthony too much, but the good thing is what we've done here is we've created an internal process through blueprinting where we're going to be adaptable. And we're going to have a process in place that's going to take new standards if and when they come, and we're going to start working on our own local curriculum. And we're still going to try and get straight A's on whatever the report card looks like then. And we're still going to prepare our students for success in college. But this is where teachers speak up and say, here's where you're killing us. Here's where it's getting really disheartening to be a teacher. Because at the end of the day, the first grade teacher is still teaching my daughter to learn to read. And, you're creating all this other work, and they still got to teach her how to learn to read. So, more changes in store, unfortunately.
Well, I hope that because there is a time for public input, and I mean that for teacher input, so I hope that it's encouraged that our teachers here do provide input on any changes.
We will certainly promote
And that would
that.
certainly be something worthwhile for our school advocacy committee.
Yes.
Because again, when they hear from our parents, they're probably more apt to listen than actual teachers.
I think that's accurate because we tend to, at this level, to speak from the determination or the position of another unfunded mandate. And I know that wears on, I had a coffee with a parent this week that wears on the understanding that our legislators get tired of hearing it. But I would agree with you. I think we can do to encourage those teachers that are in the front lines to be there would be great.
Our teachers have always been involved in state processes. They, we apply a lot. We try and get selected. When it's voluntary input, we do promote those things. And we don't, it's not always talked about. But when these current standards were adopted, there was a period of public input, and teachers provided input back then. And at the time, we're generally happy with the changes that were made. So, but the politicized environment has changed that, I think, a lot. The other thing, though, that going back to my conversation with Representative Brenner was, as they're looking for that state superintendent, I expressed my belief that somebody with a knowledge of Ohio and what we've been through in the past 10 years would be desirable as a leader. And the group I was with certainly expressed their desire to be a part of that process. And I'm not sure, where that's going to go, but that's how educators feel.
Who has the ultimate hiring authority on that? Is that the governor?
No, the school board.
Depends on
It's
how you-
the state school
Is it the
board
state board?
that has been hijacked by the governor.
Well, yeah. Well,
Thank you, Julie.
We'll keep all of our hijacking discussions about what the
I
governor
can
has done
say
the
that.
last 4 years to ourselves, but with all due respect to our governor.
Do they have a timetable? Have they said when they're going to do it?
Well, they have the interim in place.
Right.
They have paused it. They met last week and they put a pause on it because they can't agree with what qualifications they would like or how much they want to pay. So anywhere between $200,000 and $1 million is what the range is right now.
That's a
With
fairly large
Representative
range.
Brenner being on record saying he wants to pay him $1 million, but yet
Which-
ask him what he wants to pay a teacher.
Well, I was going to say, that seems so contrary to what,
Yeah.
I'll stop. I'll stop.
Anything else?
If they're going to pay $1 million, I respectfully nominate myself, just for the record.
Any other comments? I think we had a good discussion here.
All
Thank
right,
you very much.
so lastly, we're going to be presenting to you here, I'm sorry, Dave, I forgot about this one, in the future. We have a lot of great things going on through the department, so I just wanted to give you a heads up. We're going to be back. We're going to be talking digital conversion at the end of the month, and I'll bring back the Global Scholars discussion for you. Anything else that piqued your interest in that presentation between now and then, please let Mr. Ray or myself know, and we'll be sure to share that information. I believe the last February meeting coincides on, I think it is the 25th. So we might have some report card data, who knows? But we look forward to sharing all the great things that we're doing here in the district with you, and we appreciate your support wholeheartedly.
Thank you, Jack. Great presentations. With that, our added item number 6, the executive session. May we have a motion to enter an executive session for the purpose of considering the employment of a public employee as permitted by the Ohio Revised Code.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Any discussion? Mr. Curran, if you would please take the roll.
Mrs. Feasel?
Yes.
Mr. Bartz?
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Mrs. Patrick?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes, the motion to go into executive session passes 5-0. We will not have any more presentations or business this evening, so we'll just come back in the room to adjourn officially. So thank you for being here.